You've met someone like this before. Confident, opinionated, certain about almost everything they say. At first, it's impressive, but then something feels off. Not obvious, not immediate, just a quiet feeling that something isn't adding up. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Psychology calls this pattern the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with the least understanding often have the most confidence. It usually starts with subtle arrogance. They don't share ideas, they declare them. No hesitation, no second thoughts, just certainty. Confidence like that can feel convincing until it turns into overconfidence. They don't just believe they're right, they believe they cannot be wrong. And that's when small questions can cause cracks. Scene 1, the mask slips. At first, everything sounds convincing. They speak with certainty, confidence, even authority. The kind of voice that makes people stop questioning. But then, you go a little deeper. You ask a simple question, why? Not aggressively, not confrontational, just enough to move past the surface. And that's when something shifts. There's a pause, a flicker, almost unnoticeable, but it's there. Their clarity begins to dissolve. The smooth explanations turn into fragments. Sentences start looping back on themselves. The same phrases reappear, reworded, recycled, repeated. You notice something else too. They stop giving specifics. Details vanish. Examples become vague. And instead of expanding the idea, they circle around it. Carefully, avoiding depth. This is what superficial thinking looks like up close. It mimics intelligence, but it cannot sustain pressure. Because real understanding moves forward. It builds. It connects. It adapts. But this stalls. It echoes itself. It survives not on depth, but on familiarity. And the more you listen, the clearer it becomes. You're not hearing knowledge. You're hearing something that only sounds like it. Scene 2, the reaction. So you shift, just slightly. You don't attack. You don't embarrass them. You simply point something out. Gently. Maybe a small inconsistency. Maybe a quiet contradiction. Something subtle, but real. And that's when it happens. They interrupt. Not to understand, but to regain control. Their tone changes. Sharpened. Tighter. Less patient. There's a sudden urgency in the way they respond. As if the conversation is no longer about truth, but about defense. You see it in their body language. You hear it in their voice. The irritation. The resistance. The quiet refusal to even consider being wrong. Because for them, being wrong is not just a moment of correction. It's exposure. It threatens the image they've built. The one that says, I know. I understand. I'm right. And without that image, there's nothing underneath to hold the weight. So they protect it. Quickly. Instinctively. Emotionally. Not because they're confident, but because they can't afford not to be. Note, these signs are subtle and situational. Not everyone who shows one of these behaviors is unintelligent. This is about patterns over time, not a single moment or impression. Scene 3, the break. And if you push just a little further, not aggressively, not even forcefully, just enough to stay on the truth, that's when the mask finally begins to fracture. The calm you saw before? It fades. Not all at once, but in subtle, revealing ways. Their tone tightens. Their words come faster, less measured, less controlled. There's a shift in energy, one you can feel before you fully understand it. What once sounded composed, now sounds strained. And then, it sharpens. The patience disappears. Responses become shorter, more reactive, less about what's being said, and more about ending the conversation. This is where the illusion can no longer hold. Because what you're seeing now isn't confidence. It's instability under pressure. This is quickness to anger, but not the kind that comes from injustice, or something genuinely worth reacting to. No, this is something else. This is what happens when certainty has no foundation. When belief is held together not by understanding, but by the need to appear understanding. And the moment that appearance is challenged, there's nothing underneath to support it. So instead of thinking, they react. Fast. Emotionally. Defensively. Because reaction is easier than reflection. And anger. Anger is louder than doubt. Scene 4, the truth. And underneath all of this, beneath the confidence, beneath the defensiveness, beneath the reactions, there is something quietly absent. Something you don't notice at first. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Humility. Not weakness. Not insecurity. But the quiet awareness of limits. Because real intelligence doesn't announce itself loudly. It carries something far more subtle, an understanding of how much remains unknown. It doesn't rush to prove. It doesn't cling to being right. It leaves space. Space to question. Space to adjust. Space to grow. But when someone believes they've already arrived, that space disappears. There's no room for doubt. No room for correction. No room for anything that threatens the image they've built. And without that space, growth stops. Completely. Because growth requires friction. It requires being wrong. It requires the ability to step back and say, I might not understand this as well as I think. But when that ability is gone, learning turns into repetition. Curiosity turns into defense. And intelligence, or the appearance of it, becomes something frozen, rigid, untouchable, and ultimately, unchanging. Closing reflection. Intelligence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush to dominate conversations. It doesn't fight to be right. The smartest people you'll ever meet pause, question, listen, and the ones who seem the most certain, often the ones you should look at twice. Because in the end, it's not confidence that reveals intelligence. It's awareness of how much you still don't know. Thanks for watching. Guiding Veil Echoes reveals the deeper forces behind history, power, and human behavior. Subscribe to understand the world beyond the surface.